And I'm Jan English-Lueck. I'm one of the professors in the anthropology department. I've also been very much involved in behavioral science. I consider myself a behavioral scientist as much as I do an anthropologist. And I've also been one of the co-creators of the organizational studies program. So I think I can answer questions about most of the things that we have. We also have a guest lurker in our system, Cheryl Cohen, who is an organizational studies major, but also is one of the people that can maybe answer questions about grad school because she works in our grad studies department. So the plan for today is pretty simple. I know this is a little bit weird because ordinarily we would bring you back down to our lab in the basement of Washington Square Hall, and I would give you a little virtual tour and maybe walk you over to Clark Hall where we have our offices and show you around. And obviously I can't do this under the shelter-in-place order. So I'm going to give you a virtual tour of our programs and of our department through the website by walking you through the resources we have on that website. But I think one of the things I'd like to do before we start is I created a little poll, and I'd like you to answer that poll to tell me which of your majors, the majors we offer, anthropology major, behavioral science major, or org studies major, you're interested in hearing about. Well, that's evenly split. So I think I'll happily talk about all of those. Anthropology, behavioral science, and org studies are equally split. So that is just wonderful. So what I'm going to start out to do is to share my screen with you so that you can see the website for the anthropology department. And I wanted to start out this way because in part, this is the kind of thing that you'll be able to see on your own. And I wanted to familiarize you with the kind of resources that you can find virtually since you can't yet come on campus. I'm really delighted that you're thinking of coming to the anthropology department's programs at San Jose State. A picture just popped up there that I'm sharing that is actually of my youngest daughter who just got her degree from anthropology at San Jose State. So clearly I am heavily invested in this program. So it is a fabulous program. And I mean that in every metric you can imagine. The faculty are excellent. Here I pop up as the 2019 President's Scholar. Dr. Charlotte Sinceri will be the 2020 Outstanding Professor. Dr. Marco Menichetti, who is an archaeologist, is the Warburton Research Professor of the Year. So we just have award after award for our professors, but I think that's only the tip of the iceberg. The professors that come to San Jose State are not only interested in being scholars and researchers, although we're well known for that throughout the world, but we're also at San Jose State because we love teaching students and working with students. And I wanted to introduce you to our department chair, Roberto Gonzalez, who is just a fabulous scholar and also just a wonderful department chair. And he is available online for advising, so you can contact him and ask him questions. I too am an undergraduate advisor for the remainder of spring semester. And so I would be delighted if you contacted me, Jan English-Lueck. I will share my information with you shortly. But it is I think a very student-oriented program. And so I wanted to make you familiar with that. I don't think any of you are planning to come into the graduate program immediately, but I did want you to make you aware of our graduate program. And the coordinator of our program is Dr. A.J. Foss. And he is a fabulous graduate coordinator. He knows every detail of the program, and if he doesn't, he finds out within a very short time. And we have an applied anthropology master's program in our program. Many behavioral science students, as well as anthropology and org studies students, go into that program. There are also master's programs in the Department of Psychology and master's programs in the Department of Sociology. And if you're interested in organizational studies, I think we have organizational studies students who are interested in master's programs in communication studies, economics, psychology, and of course anthropology. Those are some, and political science. Those are some of our feeder disciplines into our interdisciplinary program. So one of the things that I think I get as questions if we were all just sitting comfortably around Washington Square Hall is, how can I find out about my program? And what you do is you come to the tab for undergraduate degrees and you look for your major. And one of the things to note is that we do have 3 different majors in the Department of Anthropology. They're all our children. We don't love one child more than any other. A BA in anthropology, a BA in behavioral science, and a BA in organizational studies, which is our newest interdisciplinary program. Now, there are also minors that we host, minors in anthropology and Native American studies, in values, technology, and society. The only major that requires a minor is organizational studies. In organizational studies, you have to have a minor. It does not have to be one of anthropology's minors. It can be any minor out there at San Jose State. And I'm pretty sure that some of you in organizational studies will have questions about that. I'm happy to answer that in the Q&A portion of the webinar, which will not be very long. I'm not going to take you through a lot of tour before we get into the Q&A. But all you do is click on each one and it will tell you a little bit about the requirements in the program. And then you just scroll down. All of our programs, anthropology, behavioral science, organizational studies, are interdisciplinary. Even anthropology tries to bring together the flavors of cultural anthropology, archaeology, and physical anthropology, as well as introduce you to a wider world of social science. And so we absolutely are committed to having these multiple perspectives. We don't want you to decide as a transfer student or as a incoming freshman, oh, I just want to be a physical anthropologist and never look at anything else. We want you to be as broadly educated so you can make choices as you go along in your educational career. And similarly, in behavioral science, we don't want you to necessarily say, oh, I'm in love with one discipline or another. Now, if you know that you plan to go to grad school in one of these disciplines, it's good to take an emphasis in that discipline or even an additional minor in that discipline. It's not easy to have a minor with behavioral science because it's sort of a major of minors. There are ways to do it, and you'd have to work closely with an advisor to figure out those ways to do it without getting yourself into trouble with a class that doesn't count in one area or another. But if you're going to grad school in one of those areas, think about concentrating in that area to begin with. One of the blessings of behavioral science is that it's so open-ended. It allows you to have an absolutely broad framework of thinking through the role of culture, the role of behavior and the mind, and the role of society and inequality on any human experience. And our students go on to do almost anything that has to do with human beings. I've had some brilliant behavioral science students that go on to work in social work and in counseling and in those kinds of deep interpersonal connections. There are behavioral science students that go on to work in nonprofits. There are behavioral science students that become teachers, behavioral science students that take the route into industry and go into human, to HR, human relations and human resources in HR. And all of those are equally valid paths, plus others, myriad others, people that go into law enforcement. Anytime you can imagine a job that requires interaction with people, behavioral science is a good preparation for that. So those are things we can answer some questions, specific questions, when we get a little bit later into this. And the final undergraduate degree I want to introduce you to is a relatively new degree, and that is a BA in Organizational Studies. And we imagined this degree to be for people who wanted to work in organizations but didn't necessarily want to work in businesses. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't go into business with an organizational studies degree, but there are tons of organizations out there that are not for-profit businesses. There are governmental businesses. There are nonprofit businesses, nonprofit organizations. Schools are organizations, hospitals are organizations, and understanding how organizations work and how to manage issues within those organizations is an incredible asset. So the state of California, when we proposed this degree a few years back, we're incredibly excited because there's really not very much out there that is like this. So in this interdisciplinary major, you have many, many different paths to choose from. You can take a core set of courses in organizational studies, and you take a class in methods so that you can know how to do research and ask questions and collect information. And we ask you to think about the issues of organizations and identity, how organizations work with society, and the processes of organizations. And then you finish that with a very much applied capstone that allows you to work with a community issue. And I suspect over the next few years, our community issues will have to do with COVID-19 and sheltering in place, and with the economic recovery within particular neighborhoods in our area. I think that that's highly likely. So the theme of all three majors is to be hands-on, to go in and actually get your hands dirty, working with people in the community. And although that's a little tricky to do right now at a distance, we're figuring out ways in which we can work with communities remotely and still be tightly knit with the folks around us. We have a number of partners in the university that help us figure things out like that. One of our partners is Communiversity. It is a organization, a nonprofit organization that connects San Jose State University, the city of San Jose's District 3, that is all of downtown San Jose, and also the residents of the community. And they will often ask us to address some kind of issue within the community. Maybe it's improving college-going culture, or making a healthier community, trying to be robust, perhaps, and resilient in the aftermath of disasters. That's definitely something that we're going to be facing. And they would ask us as a university to think of projects that could involve students. So many of our courses have either a service learning component or a community research component that will allow you to have some hands-on experience. And the importance of this is that that is good for your resume, that is good for your career, that is good for making connections in the community, and it's wonderful for thinking about graduate school. We do have a graduate program, but I'm going to introduce you to some of the people that you'll be seeing. Now, this is a photograph of the Anthropology and Behavioral Science Club, which is a pretty robust group. Right now, if you can believe it, we're meeting through Discord, the gaming platform, because that allows us to kind of connect and chat and share films and share videos. I suspect that we'll be in person sooner rather than later, because that's one of the best parts of belonging to the club. And as I've already mentioned, we have wonderful faculty. not only within the anthropology department, but in psychology and sociology and the other faculties that are part of organizational studies. But what I really want you to notice is that we have several pages here of graduate alumni. Now, these are students that that have gone through the Applied Anthropology Master's Program, but many of them are from anthropology, organizational studies, behavioral science. And if you ever wonder what you can do with these degrees, click on this link and start to look at the experience of the people who have gotten degrees in anthropology, behavioral science, and organizational studies, gone on to graduate school, and really are doing amazing things with their lives. And so you can just go into page after page after page of people who have gotten degrees and have really done fascinating and interesting things with their careers. And I want you to just sort of surf these pages in order to get some inspiration for where you could go with your own path. Because these folks are amazing inspirations to all of the faculty, and I know they will be to you as well. Now, one of the things you're probably interested in is how we're going to do advising during this time. And we have very robust advising. When you come to San Jose State next year, there are drop-in advising hours. If we are not able, and we still don't know whether we're going to be able to be on campus, the faculty are available for Zoom advising hours. I'm available for Zoom advising hours even now. And there's a lot of opportunity to really connect with faculty and ask questions. And almost every single person in our department is available for that. And certainly all the what we call the graduate faculty, the permanent faculty, are available for advising hours. There are also other opportunities to get student advising, and you probably have heard a little bit about this, but we have a fabulous center on room 240 in Clark Hall. And now, of course, you can get in touch with those people through Zoom, which is called the Access Center. And the Access Center is available for sort of general advising, not necessarily about your major, but about how you can kind of put together general education in your major, how you can think about all those transfer classes for those of you who are transferring in, any kind of question about the bureaucratic landscape that is sometimes difficult to navigate. Your friends in Access, including peer advisors, will be extremely helpful. And obviously your faculty advisors can help you with a lot of this material, but it's nice to know that there's a one-stop shop in the Access Center for you. There are also a lot of really useful resources, and this is my attempt to, if we had been in Washington Square Hall, I would have taken you down into Washington Square Hall and we would have gone to the Integrative Anthropology Laboratory, which is this fun space with, we've got a skeleton in there, we've got really cool desks, and it's very much a 21st century teaching space. And I hope you have an opportunity next year to come to it right away and experience that. But we have some excellent resources. For those of you who are interested in anthropology, we do have one of the largest archaeological collections, intact collections from a single site west of the Mississippi. We have an excellent relationship with the Native American population here, the Muwekma Ohlone in San Jose, and they work with us all the time. And as archaeologists, that allows us to have access to things like human remains, which I remind us we have to be very respectful about that. But nonetheless, it allows us to conduct scientific research in a way that is not always possible outside of places like San Jose State. We've worked for decades and decades to have good relationships with the communities around us. And so that has given us the ability to continue to do scientific research in things like physical anthropology and archaeology, when many other universities have not had that asset. We also have a number of grants, as does the psychology department and the sociology department and other individual departments, but the specific grants for you guys for anthropology, behavioral science, and org studies students are the Laura Good Grant, the Vecchi Fellowship. There are grad grants for graduate students. There are also scholarships that are part of the College of Social Science and other kinds of scholarships that would be available to you through our professional organizations, the American Anthropological Association, the Society for Applied Anthropology, and other organizations with which we work. All the faculty at San Jose State that you would be encountering in your classes are very active professionally. And so we would love the opportunity to mentor you and help you find opportunities to do research and present that research. And that's pretty much my tour. I would like to open, I'm going to stop sharing my little tour of the website here and open this up to questions and answers. So you'll see something that is a Q&A button, and just type in your question and I will do my best to answer that. Now, this is being transcribed for captioning, so I will read every question out loud to make sure that it is available. This is your time. If you have specific questions about behavioral science, specific questions about any of the organizational studies, I'm happy to entertain those questions at this point. I could also unmute you and you could ask the question out loud if you don't want to type in. So let me know if you can see this. How do you declare a minor, specifically one that is not in this particular department? Excellent question. So what you do to declare a minor, and I would say you do this sooner rather than later, because much of what you will use to help you navigate which courses that you need comes through your MySJSU app. So you would go into MySJSU, you would look at my progress report, which is what we use to determine, are you getting ready to graduate? And so one of the things that you might do, so you want to make sure your minor is declared early so that all of the classes that you take for that minor count for the minor. So what you need to do is look at, first of all, look at the website of the particular minor you are interested in. If you're interested in Justice Studies, one of the Justice Studies minors, if you're interested in a Spanish minor, if you're interested in one of those really cool new interdisciplinary minors on for example, computing for social scientists or human factors, or some of the minors that might help you, give you a leg up in the tech hiring world in the future. Look for that minor, look and see what's required in that minor, and then approach that department and the same form that you would download. And I would say just do a search for the in the registrar's office for the form that allows you to add a minor. If you have under 90 units, it's super easy to declare a minor. If you have more than 90 units, it becomes a little bit more difficult because we don't want you to go like an extra year just because you decided to have a minor in your senior year. So we really want you to declare that minor early. If you want to talk over what minor would be best with your major, I think talk to one of the faculty advisors. Let us know what your career aspirations are. Let us know what your skill set and histories are. And we can maybe guide you to thinking about which minor might serve you best. So it's pretty easy to declare. Once you're here at San Jose State, it won't take long for you to be able to declare your minor. I hope that answered your question. More questions, please. I'm here for you. Are there classes that deal with the anthropological filmmaking side of anthropology? Whoa, yes, that is an excellent question from Natalie. We do have a specific class called Multimedia Anthropology, Anthropology 173. I would say filmmaking is just one of the facets of what you can do with anthropological knowledge. We're doing a lot of interesting things with multimedia. In fact, Cheryl, who is one of the people who is in this chat today, is part of a project in which we are creating a virtual reality environment in which ethnographic material is being lived out and spoken by within this virtual reality environment. It's sort of like next step, kind of next step filmmaking. We actually require filmmaking in some of our courses. I require people make a film in emerging global cultures. I require my graduate students make films in a project that we do with the Alliance, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Renault research lab here in Silicon Valley on the future of our streets and the future of our street life, not just autonomous vehicles, but just what's happening in our street life. And they're doing a film right now remotely from home on the impact of COVID-19 and shelter in place on the way in which we use parking lots and streets and sidewalks. So absolutely, there are opportunities to learn how to do filmmaking. We also do that through alliances with, we might encourage people to take communication studies courses or mass communication courses, or maybe even a minor to help you build up that skill set. So even though we don't have a separate visual anthropology program, we have incorporated that visual anthropology component into our classes, and a number of us are doing things in that. I have several YouTube channels where I've done had a series of student videos, or sometimes we take those student videos and we go to anthropological meetings. We've gone to the Southwestern Anthropological Association. We've gone to the American Anthropological Association, EPIC, which is the Industry and Ethnography Association, and shown some of those films. And so we often join film festivals and are very much involved in that world. I have another question, which is about the kinds of projects that we have in our department. And those projects involve not just anthropology students, but behavioral science and organizational studies students. We really want to give undergraduate students an opportunity to do hands-on research. That is one of the most important things that students can do for building your resume and for getting expertise that kind of goes beyond the course, beyond just ticking off, oh, I took this class, and this class, to go out and actually conduct research and analyze that research and figure out how do you share that research with various communities. And we have some fabulous, fabulous projects. The project section of our website is being worked on as I speak and will be updated. I can certainly share some of the projects I know about among my colleagues. In archaeology, for example, we have several different projects. We have a field school that is local, that is up at Loma Prieta. You may know that name from the earthquake some time ago. But that is a company town, a mining town that has been excavated by San Jose State students. We also have a field school and this is pretty fabulous, I must say, and we do have photos of this on our website, a field school in the island of Nevis in the Caribbean. So if you've ever heard of Alexander Hamilton, that's where Hamilton comes from. He comes from the Caribbean island of Nevis. And Dr. Marco Minichetti has a long-term field project there looking at the origins of capitalism in the sugar plantations, including excavating and mapping Hamilton's estate. just a fabulous opportunity to get hands-on experience. And we also have a number of lab projects that have to do with us working with our skeletal remains and understanding disease and other kinds of issues. And so that gives people an opportunity to kind of work with skeletal material and come up with original insights. We also have a strong program where we have worked with the county doing forensic anthropology over the decades. And so understanding how skeletal remains, what they tell us, is an important facet of that. Two of my colleagues, Dr. Foss and Dr. Marlowitz, are working with the homeless population, trying to understand impacts on the homeless population. And boy, do they have a field day right now, because that's front and central to the kinds of issues that we're seeing as a community. Dr. Foss is one of the leading experts in the world. He won't tell you this, but I'll tell you this. He's one of the leading experts in the world on disaster anthropology. Oh, how people can prepare for disasters, what happens during disasters, and most especially what happens in the aftermath of a disaster, how to build recovery in a way that works better using the knowledge of culture and psychology and sociology to really work with that. And we're working with the USGS on earthquake preparedness. We're working with Japantown very, very strongly with Japantown and other downtown areas in order to be able to understand how to prepare our multicultural environment in ways that make sense for them. We also have projects that are international as well, that projects that have extend into Latin America. Although right now we can't travel to Latin America. I myself am an anthropologist that studies Silicon Valley culture, and as you'll see from the website, I've a small stack of books that I've produced with the help of students to understand the cultures of Silicon Valley, both the role of technology and the role of immigration and multiculturalism in this area. And right now I'm involved in a project with one of the people who's in our group today, looking at the interplay of the history of the counterculture and the way companies, high-tech companies, have developed with a kind of capitalist surveillance mindset, and how sometimes those two things are at odds, and how those play out in the lives of workers and families and people who live in this region. And so there are lots of projects in which students can become involved. To give you just an example of the kind of thing that I'm doing with Cheryl, who is on our webinar today. We've been working on a research project in which individual students kind of found something that they were interested in and chased it down and really dug into whether it's food or cannabis or some other facet of life in Silicon Valley, in the Silicon Valley workplace, that they want to kind of chase down and understand. Being an artist, being a advocate, community advocate. I mean, those were all people that we interviewed and talked to and tried to understand. And then we would meet periodically. And now that we have collected just an enormous amount of data, we're thinking about, going to a variety of conferences and presenting that data so that students will have an opportunity to have input into writing articles and to creating presentations and to going to conferences and getting those kinds of experiences that allow you to succeed. So we're very much involved in trying to create opportunities for students to do something that's more than just take a class. And even within our classes, we want to make sure that there are meaningful experiences in the classes that we put together for you, that you're not just looking at a textbook and taking a test, but that you're really trying to dig down and understand something that you'll take away with you after you get your degree. Other questions? I'm happy to answer any question you have, no matter how how small or how big. Now, this wasn't a question that is on our Q&A, but it was a question that was from a discussion right before the webinar about graduate school. And some of you might be thinking, do you need to go to graduate school? And I would say in the social sciences, there's a real difference in how you fare, whether you stop at your BA or you go on to get a master's degree. And it's not that you can't get work with a BA, you absolutely can get work with a BA. Although we are probably heading into an era in which it's a good thing you're in school, because it's going to be difficult to land a job in the next couple of years as we recover from this from the pandemic recession, pandemic depression. But nonetheless, what we've seen over and over again, and there's really good data for this, is that while you can get a job with a BA, you can become, you can go higher in any company. You can become a manager. You can get more salary if you get that master's degree. And yes, it costs more to get a master's degree, but the return on that investment is extremely high. And we see this over and over again. And it might surprise you to learn that social science students actually, over the course of 10 years, do better with their degree than students who rush into something like engineering, or something where they get their bachelor's and then they're kind of locked into a job. Whereas our social science students keep learning. You know, you're going to be learning how to learn, and you'll keep getting credentials and certificates and things like that that will allow you to flourish in the workplace. So I would really advocate that you strongly think about graduate school, preparing yourself for graduate school as an option. And to do that, here's some advice. Don't just tick off classes. In other words, don't just have a list of classes. Take your classes, get a decent-ish grade in those classes, and imagine that that prepares you for grad school. Try to do something that is a little bit different. Try to do something that is either working on one of your faculty's research projects, or taking courses that you know give you some real world experience. Try to do something that makes you a little bit distinctive. Get to know some of your faculty. When you go to grad school, you're going to often need letters of recommendation. And if you just sit in the back of the class, turn in your papers, and never get to know people, that's pretty difficult. And I would say your challenge next year is, if we have some more online classes, you know, really reaching out and having Zoom conversations with your faculty, having email conversations with your faculty, make yourself known. And that way you build a relationship with your faculty so they can continue to mentor you towards graduate education and give you a better advice about what courses to take and how to leverage those courses when you apply to graduate school. And so I would really advocate that you think about graduate school now, even though you're just coming in to an undergraduate program or just coming in from a community college. It's incredibly important to think about how to build that foundation for your future success. Don't just take it one step at a time. Give yourself the luxury of thinking about a 5-year plan. And I think that that is an incredible asset to start out your career with. Okay, any more questions? I think we're heading towards the time to, are there any internship and career programs for undergraduates? And this is an excellent question. That we do have a fabulous career center. It is a very good career center. They don't always know what to do with interdisciplinary students. And because you don't really fall into the category of, oh, you're a business student or a nursing student, or even a psych student. So you have to work with them, but we bring them into our programs. All of our capstones in organizational studies, behavioral science, anthropology, we always have the career center there. We try to bring the career center there into your 100W writing workshop classes that you take when you're a beginning junior, so that you have some sense of how to work with the Career Center. So the Career Center kind of keeps a bank of excellent internship opportunities. It really kind of depends on what kind of internship you want. Now, the bad news is that COVID-19 has made it very, very difficult to actively have internships. Companies do not know how to integrate interns remotely. It's very difficult right now. And so many of the internships that we've had for years and years and years are kind of on hold while they think through that relationship. I think a better way of thinking about this is look for connections and apprenticeships. How can you join a community that includes people that are actively in their careers? For example, I'm the host of a Bay Area-wide community of all the ethnographers and the designers and ethnographers who use anthropology and use ethnography in industry. And that has grown from about, there were, back in 2000, there were 6 of us, and now there are hundreds. I have about 400 people in this community, and we meet. We're meeting remotely next weekend. We're meeting virtually. We meet once a month, and I foster a mentorship program where students can be kind of connected to people who are actively working at Google or Kaiser or some other organization where they're using ethnography. And all the faculty, I think, in the social sciences are really committed to try and mentor you so that you get these kind of internship-like programs. Now, they aren't necessarily formal internships, although those formal internships exist in political science. They exist through things like Communiversity and our other service learning opportunities. But I would think really look for, how do you connect to the outside world in a way that will benefit your career, and not necessarily attach the I word, but think about the connecting as an important aspect of that. So yes, we do advocate that. We do try to help people find those opportunities. But as I said, the bad news is right now, the world of employers is trying to figure out how to hang on to their employees, and they certainly don't know what to do with interns. So it's a little tricky. But yes, the short answer is yes. And I think that takes us to our time. I'll give you an opportunity for one last question, and then I'll shut it down. My email is jan.english-lueck, L-U-E-C-K, at sjsu.edu, and I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions that you might have. Well, it was nice meeting you.